Facebook now. Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Russo. I am the CEO of the Palm Beach Tech Association, and as of 5 minutes ago, a Zoom novice trying to get everything working on Zoom and Facebook Live. At the end of the day, after a 12-hour day, it's always fun. So I am really excited to be joined here by the executive IT team from Florida Crystals. I'm going to briefly introduce them and their topic today and allow them to take it away. But first, I wanted to give a brief introduction to our Tech Talk. If you've not seen us before, this is a weekly event where we bring in the companies in South Florida that are doing some really neat, amazing things and give them the platform to talk about them. This is part of our effort to build the Palm Beaches and now South Florida into a tech hub by featuring the great companies and the great people that are really out there doing that. So all this is part of the Palm Beach Tech Association. We're a nonprofit 501c6 organization. We have over 165 members and represent about 7,500 people in the South Florida tech industry today. With that, we have some really great members, Florida Crystals being one of them, but also even great companies like Total Wine, which you might not realize from buying a bottle of wine from their website, actually have a development shop in Boynton Beach, Florida, where they do that. And of course, we do have the company NextEra Energy, Florida Power and Light, keeping our lights on. If you want to join, or you know somebody who might want to join, we have a lot of really great member benefits, and we're working really hard to help our companies out right now. Go online at palmbeachtech.org to learn a little bit more, and of course support our friendly neighborhood tech association who's out there helping support our companies and our industry right now. One of the new things that we just launched last week is a resume distributor. So if you know somebody who's looking for a job, you can go to our website. They can submit their resume, and we will pass it on to great companies like Florida Crystals and those others that you just saw on that list. With that, I would love to introduce our guests for today. We have Kevin Grayling, who is the Chief Information Officer with Florida Crystals, and Christine Vanderpool, the Chief Information Security Officer. And they are going to be talking a little bit about their journey to 100% SaaS, and of course, tell us a little bit about what's it's like working with Florida Crystals in this day and age. So thank you both for joining us here on the call, and feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Joe. I think, Christine, you wanted to say a few words first, yeah?
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for letting us speak today. And it's actually really, I can't even express how appreciative I am to work for the company that I work for in Florida Crystals and ASR Group, especially during this challenging time. You know, it's something amazing when you get to work for a company that is vital and critical to the world's food supply chain, and being able to make sure that we're doing our part to keep food on the table while people are stressed about so many other things is just, it makes you feel good about what you're doing, that you're part of an organization that truly is making a difference, especially in these trying times. So I'm happy to talk about anything and everything to do with SaaS-based security and cloud security and all kinds of things along that nature. And as we go through the conversation, I'll let Kevin take the lead on our journey, and I'll be here to answer any security related questions.
Okay, thanks, Christine. So welcome, everyone. And again, thanks to Joe Russo and the Palm Beach Tech Association for inviting us to talk about our strategy and our journey. So just before we get into it, we're all in South Florida, or most of us are in South Florida. So most of you will know who Florida Crystals are, but I thought I'd say a few words about that first. I don't have any slides, so it's just us talking today, but we're essentially three companies in one. We're an agricultural company, a farming company. We have about 500,000 acres of sugarcane fields in South Florida and in the Caribbean, and that produces about 1.5 million tons of raw sugar every year. We're also a refining company. We're vertically integrated, which means that we not only grow the raw sugar from sugarcane, but we also refine it. We're the world's largest refiner of sugar from sugarcane. We refine about 6 million tons of raw sugar a year into finished goods. And we are a consumer packaged goods company. We have household brands. I'm sure you know many of them. whether it's Domino Sugar in the northeast of the US, or Redpath in Canada, Florida Crystals down here in Florida, or C&H on the West Coast, or if you're from Europe, you might know the brands Tate & Lyle and Sadul. So we are a global, vertically integrated sugarcane company. I joined Florida Crystals about 2.5 years ago, and I came from a company that was a customer of Florida Crystals. I came from Mondelez, and we would buy sugar from Domino or companies within the Florida Crystals brands, and we would put it in our sugar-containing products. And when I came to Florida Crystals, there was a rich history in the company of innovation within IT. My predecessor, Don Whittington, had taken the company along for a best part of 20 years, innovating in certain spaces within the company, and had built a very, very modern business application landscape. We are a big customer of SAP, and we had built quite a modern SAP landscape that we were using to run the finance or the HR or the supply chain or the sales and marketing of the organization. And we had a very, very close relationship with SAP because of that. A lot of history of co-innovation. First company in the world to move to SAP HANA, if you know what that is. I'm sure many of you do. First company in the world to move to Business Suite on HANA, S4 on HANA. First company in the world to use SAP's data mining and visualization platform, Analytics Cloud, and so on and so on. So a rich, storied history of innovation and co-innovation with SAP. And I just come from Mondelez as their lead for the global IT transformation program that they were running. And my responsibilities in that program were a lot of consolidation and rationalization of the organization, of infrastructure, but also of the application landscape. And we had a couple of thousand applications at Mondelez. And when I left 3 or 4 years later, we'd rationalized that down to 700, which was a Herculean effort, but there were still 700 applications and very, very complex landscape. No hope of rationalizing that down any further. Still 4 or 5 versions of one thing in every part of the business. So as I got into the role at Florida Crystals and I looked at the relationship with SAP and I saw, so where are we going to take this now? Do we continue to modernize the technology that we're running our business processes on? Or do we do something more than that? And it struck me that we had this amazing opportunity to move our entire business process application suite, but also our infrastructure, and Christine will talk more about it too, our security services to software as a service. And why would we do that? Every role I've been in IT has been, whether it's in agile or waterfall, has been in the typical, what I call the software development lifecycle. Whether you write the software or you build the software internally yourself, or whether you get a third party to do it for you, the cycle is the same. You understand a business opportunity to improve a process by automating it or digitizing it, making it more efficient, making it more effective. You get a larger number of people together to understand what the requirements are. What's the size of the opportunity? Why would we do it? What are the benefits? Ultimately, the more successful ideas turn into projects. You go through a project approval process and you end up with a pot of money and a set of resources and a timeline to go build something. And then you go into design workshops. And then after a few weeks or months, you come out of those design workshops and you build whatever it is you're going to build, whether it's off the shelf with a bit of customization or whether it's highly customized. There's a period of time where you put it together and then you test it and then you implement it and then you go through a period of support and then you do some enhancements to it. And you know, that end-to-end cycle is a consuming cycle for organizations. It consumes resources, it consumes thinking time, it consumes money. And ultimately, what many companies end up doing is they just build the same mousetrap over and over again that other companies have built, or they reinvent the wheel. And, you know, Florida Crystals is not unlike many companies. It has some complexities, but really if it can use standard business processes, it doesn't really need to differentiate itself from US Sugar, which is the other part of Lake Okeechobee, our friendly competitors with Carl Stringer there. Or it doesn't need to differentiate itself with a refining company in Europe or a refining company in other parts of the US. How it differentiates itself is how it manages the commodity market and where it gets its raw sugar from, and the quality of its product and being able to get it to the customer on time with high quality. The rest of what we do, we just need to do really well. We don't need to do it much better than anyone else. So a standard business process for us fits 90+% of what we do. So imagine an organization that instead of having that software development lifecycle that I talked about, where you go through the requirements gathering, the project approval, the design, the build, the test, the implement, and then enhancements after that. Imagine an organization that has gotten to 100% of its business processes, as well as its infrastructure processes like security or collaboration, on a software as a service platform, where the responsibility to design those enhancements or those new capabilities falls to the software as a service partner. And they go through their own research and development, and they go through their own build, design, build, and test cycle. And essentially what they do, just like they do on Zoom, which is the platform we're using now, or other platforms, they implement those new capabilities for you. And in some cases, you need to do a little bit of testing with your data, but in many cases, you just turn on those new capabilities when you want to use them. So imagine an organization like that, that instead of putting all of that energy into that software development lifecycle, can put all of its energy into the adoption of those new capabilities. And what I mean by that is, most of the time, even really successful projects don't focus on adoption. They focus on getting it to the start of the project, fixing any bugs and defects you've got. And more often than not, they don't go backwards and even check that the benefits were realized. They really don't go back and make sure all of the people that were meant to change the way that they were working have adopted the new way of working and you're getting to the benefits. Or they've changed the way they're working, but the benefits didn't materialize. So we need to understand that. So imagine an organization that instead of doing that, focuses on what are the 10 things that this process, whether it's, let's take the sales and operations planning process. And we at Florida Crystals and ASR, we use SAP's IBP, Integrated Business Planning Platform, which is a full SaaS cloud platform. Imagine an organization that not only the IT resources, but the sales resources and the supply chain resources and the operations planning resources, they're focused on what's coming down in the roadmap. What is SAP going to turn on in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time? What are the 10 new capabilities that they're going to implement? Or what are the 10 enhancements to existing capabilities that they're going to implement? And what are the ones that make the most difference for us? Because it's a standard business process, it doesn't always mean that you want to use everything that you get in the portfolio. You might want to just use 2 or 3 of those things. What are the 2 or 3 things that are going to make us a better company? And how do we get the people that need to use that process to adopt that as early as possible in its availability, so that the company can get to the benefits of that new way of working more quickly? Not only do I believe that it will require less people to do that, which is always got to be a benefit for any company. The less people you need to change the way the company works, to make it more efficient, make it more effective, the more efficient that process is. It stands to reason, right? But also that instead of those people's time being taken up on design workshops or testing, they're taken up on educating and putting in key performance indicators and measuring and making sure the adoption is taken rather than the other work. And I think to imagine a company that is 100% like that, not only would the company change faster, because you're focused on changing the company. And every company has got to be, I'm not going to use any of the cliches. Christine knows how averse I am to any of the buzzwords or the cliches that our industry tends to promote. But people don't want to change necessarily. And there's always people that see the benefit in change and move fastly. And there's also people that resist it to the nth degree. And there's a big part of people in the middle that just wait and see. Imagine those people that were able to focus on, this is going to make my job easier, and I don't need to spend X weeks or months in a project putting it together and going live with it. And so that's the opportunity for us, and that's why we've gone about the strategy the way that we have. So that might sound like fantasy and theory, and how you're going to make that work. So over the last year and a half, Christine, myself, and others in the leadership team here, along with the business function leaders and the leaders of the company, we've put together a strategy that is going to take us from where we are today. And we're already a long way down the road. In the last couple of years, we've implemented 2 or 3 big initiatives that have taken us more towards that software as a service strategy. We've implemented financial planning for fixed and variable costs with Anaplan. We've implemented transportation management with BlueJay, so that we do all of our freight now, both in terms of booking the freight and paying for the freight with BlueJay. We're just about to start a project to implement trade promotion management for our grocery channel with Kantar. And we also do many, many things with SAP, like IBP, like Concur for travel and expense management, like Analytics Cloud. And the big thing, the tough thing to change is the core ERP system. So about a year and a half ago, we started a project to move our source to pay process, which is a big part for a manufacturing company like us, is a big part of our core ERP processing, to SAP's Ariba platform, and that will finish at the end of this year. That still leaves a large part of HR, finance, production planning in SAP. And so we've worked with the leadership of SAP. Our executive sponsor is Jürgen Müller, who's the CTO of SAP. We've worked with him to first analyze, do our processes fit the core ERP standard that SAP implements with S/4HANA Cloud? And even today, we're about a 90% fit to their standard processes. And then what we're working on currently now, which will be complete at the end of May, is, and so what's it going to take to move the rest of our company to that platform? We already have the smallest country in our operation in Belize running SAP's HANA Cloud, S/4HANA Cloud. So the idea is to move Mexico and then Europe and then North America into that over the next 2 or 3 years. And that will be the final really piece in the puzzle to get the organization fully software as a service by the end of 2022. And like I say, the reward or the benefit for us is that now, for all of our business processes from end to end, from marketing even to sales to trade to supply chain operations, finance, HR, all of the things in between, we don't have to design any new business processes. We've adopted all standard business processes, and any new capabilities that we might need, and don't forget that we don't differentiate ourselves in the way that we do HR or finance from any other companies. We just need to do it well. Any of those new process enhancements or those capability enhancements, we don't need to build. They just come to us when SAP or Anaplan or whoever it is deliver them. And we can focus on, has the organization adopted that new way of working, or is there work to do to cement that adoption so that we get to the benefit? So that's really what we're about. And it also extends into non-business process applications. We are just about finishing our implementation of our collaboration platform Teams, which is just in time, because imagining, like many companies, even though we're considered an essential company, as Christine was saying in the introduction, because we generate raw material for the food industry and the beverages industry, and therefore we could go into the offices. We could 100% go into the offices if we wanted to. Obviously, our plants and refineries are continuing to work mostly fully staffed. We are for all of our knowledge workers, that means all of finance, HR, sales, marketing, supply chain, mostly. We are working remotely around the world, in Europe, in North America, in Mexico and Belize. And to imagine trying to do that a year ago, when we were using a mixed bag of collaboration platforms. I think we still had Link 2010 in there somewhere. We certainly had Skype for Business, but mostly we had nothing. Imagining trying to do that a year ago would seem impossible. So it extends into areas like collaboration. And as Christine will talk about in a minute, it also extends into security and managed security service providers. So that's the what of what we're doing. It's hopefully also the why we're doing it and what the benefit for us is. And I'll hand back to Christine now for her to add some color to the security space, and then we'll take questions.
Great, thank you. So when I joined the company almost 2 years ago now. It's hard to believe, time really does fly. I knew I had a challenge in front of me. When I joined, the company was mostly focused on application security, the security around the SAP environment. And I really knew that we needed a full cybersecurity program because if it's connected to the internet, it can be attacked, even if it's not, right? It can be attacked with things like a USB stick. So I wanted to come in and I wanted to do it in a very easy to understand methodology, a repeatable methodology. I'd built several other security programs in a similar fashion. So right off the gate, I said, we're going to follow NIST loosely. That way it's a nice framework. It's easy to explain that we've got to have protections that cover all 5 of the main core areas, which is identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. But I knew there was already so many challenges, especially around staffing in cybersecurity. I think most people have seen the numbers, how there's so many more jobs available, or so many more jobs that are out there for the number of cybersecurity people to fill them. So it's really hard to attract and retain good, solid cybersecurity professionals. So right off the bat, I knew I wanted a good partnership with a master's security service provider. So we went and we looked at a couple, but I wanted to take it even a little bit further. One day after moving to Florida, I was out in my pool enjoying why I had moved to Florida from Colorado, and I needed to go grocery shopping, but I didn't want to get out of my pool. And so I thought, well, I'll just try this thing called Instacart. Again, one of those things that who knew how important Instacart would come shortly thereafter, right? But I thought to myself, you know, if I can get all my groceries delivered to me, I don't even have to leave my pool. And it's nice because maybe today I want to use Instacart, but maybe tomorrow I want to use Grubhub and get, you know, some other type of food. And I like the option of just having that availability to switch whichever food delivery service I wanted to use. It's not like I have to sign up for one. And I thought about security tools. You know, there are a dime a dozen out there. Every day there's a new cybersecurity tool that promises you that it can, you know, solve every problem imaginable, which we know isn't true. And one day, one of them will be the top in the market. And then a couple months later, it's not the top in the market anymore. In fact, it's not even relevant anymore. And I didn't want to lock us into a set of tooling that was very expensive, because cybersecurity tools tend to be extremely expensive. So I didn't want us to have to be locked into something that we chose and then decided we didn't like. I had seen that too many times before in past jobs, in past roles. And so I worked with our security service provider and said, okay, I not only want you guys to manage it for me on my behalf and be our really 24/7 support, but I don't even want to buy the licenses for the tools that we use and we implement here. I want you to sell me a fully prepackaged service. And that way, if today we're using one thing for endpoint detection, if I decide 6 months from now, I don't like that tool anymore, then I want to be able to remove that agent and put on a new agent that you also support as a fully prepackaged service. And so the nice thing is we were able to do that with quite a few of our security tools. There's always going to be those few though that the vendor themselves, the tool themselves require you to have the direct relationship and buy the licenses from them. The bigger tools, the ones that are more sort of proven in the industry and a little less flexible, will require that. But for the vast majority of everything that we put in. We did it in that fashion. And the other thing that allowed us to do is we did a lot of implementation with our master security service provider. All within about 6 to 9 months time, we were fully operational with everything from SIM in the cloud to advanced EDR endpoint detection on our machines, to a full-scale vulnerability management program with them, to other endpoint detections, other networking security tools. So we were able to do all of that in a very short amount of time, because we went with the motto of them selling us a service, something that they have already figured out how to manage, how to support, how to do. And the beauty is I don't have to worry about maintaining resources for a SOC. It's really hard to keep people at that level, because there's such high turnover, and they suffer from something called alert fatigue, because the majority of cyber alerts that trigger in a lot of our systems are false positives. So after a while, you can imagine if every day you're dealing with 90% false positives, you start to lose interest in what you're doing rather quickly. But these service providers that you work with, they've figured out how to solve that issue. They've put in full-scale educational programs to move their people up through the ranks quickly and keep them skilled and keep them interested, which is another really good reason to use these. We're not in the security business, so why should we spend a lot of time and money trying to build up cybersecurity resources? This way my team can focus on the actual architecture, the strategy, the stuff that we need to do internally, because it is important for us. So so that's what we've been able to do, and it's been a fun journey for sure. And I'm really proud of our partnership with our MSSP and everything that we've been able to do and elevate our cybersecurity program and have such great, strong controls.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. I mean, I have to imagine that a few years ago, though, the Florida Crystals, it was basically run off your same almost stereotypical server rooms, where you had a lot of racks internally, and then maybe a lot of co-location that served as the backbone of your technology infrastructure. Am I right in saying that?
To a degree, Joe. Another bit of our storied history is my predecessor, Don, and VirtuStream we were VirtuStream's first ever customer. VirtuStream was born from a couple of ex-Florida Crystals employees. And therefore we put SAP in a hybrid cloud environment in 2010, before even people were thinking about cloud. So we'd been outsourced, in quotes, from our business application platform perspective to a third party for a long time. We were still managing a few servers that were in that co-location facility ourselves, and we still do today. And we still had some servers on some of our premises, particularly some servers that run the production control network, how we make our refined sugar into finished goods. But we are significantly outsourced to a third party in the hosting space.
And from a strictly cybersecurity perspective, Christine, I would have to imagine a large company, like Florida Crystals. There's more than just the company that you're concerned about. It's the people who are on the tail end of your work, the people trying to get food that are trying to be protected. And with that, I'm assuming that there's some sort of a national security even type of front to the work that you do to making sure that Florida Crystals can continue to operate, to make sure that people can still get the food that they need.
Right. And one of the other very first things that we did when I joined is I had us sign up and be part of the retail and hospitality information sharing community. It's called an ISAC. So they have one for like financial services and healthcare and all of those, because the biggest battle in cyber is getting the information, the threat intelligence information that's actionable in advance, right? So my prior organization that I was with was a healthcare company, and we were very big into the healthcare ISAC, and we were able to not be impacted by things like want to cry and not Petya because of the information we had seen through that threat intelligence community. And that is great because we get to give back. That's the one thing that's really always kept me so involved in loving what I do in cybersecurity, is that it is kind of like this extended family in our industry. We get together on these now virtual happy hours, seems like almost daily, with other CISOs, and we talk about the threats, and we're all under the same threats. So being able to share a certain amount of information on top of things and make sure that we're all fighting it together really does make it feel like a family, and that we can battle this together, and we can give each other information that's real time and actionable in advance of any major threats.
Gotcha. So I have to ask you, I know you're working out of an office in downtown, typically, right? Maybe not over the past few weeks, but how often do you get to go out to the farms and see the technology that they're using to help produce some of these crops? And, maybe you're working with them a little bit more often than not, but just kind of curious how much up close and personal time you have.
A decent amount, actually, Joe. We have a research and development facility just west of West Palm Beach, about an hour west of West Palm Beach, about halfway between here and Belle Glade, where our sugar mill, one of our big sugar mills, is. We have about 200,000 acres of sugarcane farms around the southeast part of Lake Okeechobee in southern Florida. So a lot of our facilities in the R&D space and in the actual production space are located about an hour west of West Palm Beach. And I spend about a day a month there in the research and development facility, and less frequently in the mill. You only plant and harvest sugarcane between September and March. We just finished the crop season here in Florida. It takes a little bit longer in Mexico and Belize. And so that's the time when you can see the harvest happening. But yeah, I spend a decent amount of time in the research and development facility. One of the big obstacles to overcome in our SaaS journey was, how do we get the farming community to use modern processes, and how do we put that on a platform that is modern? And we were fortunate enough to find a partner in Brazil, Giatec, that have put together an incredible strategy and delivery for the ERP of farming is often called farm management. There are other parts to it, like industrial milling and processing, which handles the sugar mills, and fleet management for the vehicles. But the main part of it, in terms of the planning of planting and harvesting and the commercials around it, is called farm management. And we're about halfway through implementing a 100% SaaS platform for farm management. If any industry in the world could still consider itself analog, it's farming. The term digital transformation gets used a lot in our industry, and I've never really understood what it meant for a lot of companies, like financial services that have been digital for many. It's really the digitization of your business model. A digital farming management platform is the digitization of farming, coupled with precision agriculture, autonomous vehicles, which are a reality now in farming, not in 10 years from now. We have autonomous vehicles now that really do everything but turn the vehicle around at the end of the planting or harvesting. I don't know why the turning of the vehicle is so much more difficult. That it requires an operator to do it, but it does. We use satellite imagery to see the health of the crop over the period of the season. You have the husbandry in between planting and harvesting the cane, and sometimes the cane gets too wet or it's lacking some kind of nutrient. And you can see from space now, through a light spectrum, what is happening to that crop without having to go to the field. And therefore, over a period of 200,000 acres, over a space of 200,000 acres, it's very hard to get equipment from one part of that to another part of that in short notice. So as you start to image some of this stuff, you can see, okay, that field over there is starting to look a little bit drier. We should put some equipment there because we think we're going to have to water that or spray that equipment with fertilizer. So that's, sorry, Joe, so they are actually almost leapfrogging a lot of the corporate side by adopting these processes.
So they have in the actual farming side, of what you do. You're keeping track of all of the data through satellite images and drones in
Yeah.
some case. You have precision farming with tractors that are pretty much almost completely autonomous. The turning thing gets me too. It can go anywhere, but you have to turn it around, and then that's when you need the human.
Yeah.
And you have some pretty decent adoption with all of these tools from the farms. So you're able to take a almost gut instinct profession and turn it into a complete science with the software tools that you've been
Yeah, I mean,
employing.
farmers are scientists. And I don't know if I've coined the phrase. For me, I was the first one that used it, but I used it with my team by saying, what we want to do is make sure we don't need the cane whisperers in 10 years from now. The guys that go out in the field that have been farming cane for 20, 30 years, that can smell the air and know that a field 25 miles from them is going to need to be sprayed next week. There's a lot of institutional knowledge in farming, and whether they like it or not, the next generation of farm managers are not going to be brought up the same way today's were. They're going to be brought up in a world of data and being able to analyze data and crunch it in order to make better decisions. And if they get to Florida crystals and we don't have that system of data, accurate data first to make better decisions with second, they're going to be limited in some way. They're not going to have the instinct and the institutional knowledge that the second or third generation farmers have in Florida. So it's incumbent for the survival of this company. We have to put in a people process technology landscape that gives them the data that they're expecting to find, so that they can take their experience and make even better decisions. We know it's like a marketing budget. We know we make decisions that are wrong. We just don't know what decisions until it's too late. The cliche about the marketing budget is, I know that 50% of my marketing budget is wasted. I just don't know which 50% it is. Now, we know we make bad decisions in the planting and harvesting season. We just don't know which ones they are until the crop's done. So this goes to being able to put more science around the management of farms, which is coupled really close. I mean, farming is a biological science. It's a very scientific industry, but the transaction of farming has been quite. The last big transformation in farming was mechanized farming 30, 40 years ago. Even today in Brazil, not in Brazil, in Mexico and Belize, we still have people cutting cane down by hand because it's cheaper to do that than put a tractor in the farm. So, I think this is like being in a bank in the 80s. Being in a farming company in 2020 is like being in a bank in the 80s. There is a huge technological revolution coming, and those companies that embrace it and change the way they work are the ones that will win. Maybe survive, but certainly win. And one of the things that attracted me coming to this company was the history of my boss, Luis Fernandez, and the leadership team in making big bets on process automation and technology innovation.
So with that, there was one question we got on Facebook I want to throw out here before we hit time, and that's from Richard Davis, and he was commenting on creating and maybe not creating, depending on if it's out there, custom software and systems, but noting it can add up over time. And his question is, do you see the benefit of focusing on the adoption of SaaS as more of a cost savings or more of a time savings?
It's a really good question. I would put time before cost. We can get to better capabilities quicker in a SaaS strategy than we can if we build it ourselves. Christine was talking about the shortage of professionals in the security industry and what hope we might have as a small farming company in South Florida, being able to attract security professionals to come make our environment more secure. The same is true in enterprise architecture or data analytics. We're competing with much bigger companies for the talent, the scarce talent that's out there to build stuff. So we have to make a decision. Do we build it or do we buy it? So we've made a decision. We're going to buy all of it. We're going to be a millennial in a company. We're going to rent everything. And that is going to get us to, that is going to shorten our time to get to the innovation, which also means it costs you less. And it also costs you less to run it. But I think most importantly, it's time, shorter time to market for the capability than building it yourself.
Well, with that, we've got a good 45 minutes of your time here today, and I want to thank you for spending the time with us here this afternoon and spending the time on this live stream. And Christine, I would love, of course, to thank you for serving on our board of directors to help guide our organization. Both of you are really amazing assets to our tech industry and just phenomenal people. Thank you for taking the time. I look forward to a day when we could actually all go out to the farm together and, just kind of play around with these tractors in person. I know they're not toys, but, it is neat to kind of talk about these things and then see them up close and personal. So with that, of course, thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for, being a part of Palm Beach Tech. And I appreciate being able to spend a few minutes here with you both. So I'm curious if you have a few last words to leave us with before we end the live stream.
No, thanks, Joe. Echo your comments, and thanks to Joe and the rest of the Palm Beach Tech Association team for raising the profile of South Florida and Palm Beach in particular as a source of technical innovation, doing a great job there. And thanks, Christine, for keeping our data secure, amongst other things.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Joe. And I'm very proud and happy to sit on the board and help grow this vision of stronger technology resources in the South Florida area for sure. So.
Yeah. And just as a side note, I have been cooking with Florida sugar. I'm getting all this cabin fever is turning me into a pretty decent cook. So thank you guys for helping fuel that as well.
Good.
With that, thank you all for joining our Tech Talk Online, and we'll see you again next week. Have a good day,
Thanks.
everybody.
See you.